They say marriage is all about compromise, like when she compromised our vows, and I compromised her social life. Honestly, I never thought I'd have to compete with a guy named Chad, especially not one who spells it with 2 Ds. But here we are, me drinking whiskey at 10 a.m., and her DMs doing more mileage than my car. If nothing else, I've learned that betrayal doesn't always kick the door down. Sometimes it slips in quietly and leaves its socks on the couch. It started on a Tuesday because, of course, betrayal doesn't wait for the drama of a weekend. I came home from work a little earlier than usual. I work in IT, so my schedule's flexible, and she never really asks questions about it. But that day, I noticed something small. Something so ridiculously insignificant that my brain almost let it go. My Netflix profile was logged into a Spanish soap opera. Now, I'm not against dramatic Latin love triangles, but I sure as hell never watched Pasión de Tracians. I clicked play. Subtitles on. The scene was midway through a steamy hotel rendezvous, 2 characters tangled in a mess of sweat and lies. I backed out. Then I noticed the timestamp, Season 2, Episode 6. Watched all the way through, 2 hours ago. She was supposed to be at yoga. In her words, sweating out the toxins. Cute. But I was already sweating, and it wasn't from exercise. I didn't say anything that night. I played it cool. Ate dinner with her. Kissed her cheek. Listened to her talk about how some creepy guy at the yoga studio kept looking at her downward dog. She laughed, flipping her hair over her shoulder, sipping wine from the same glass I bought for our anniversary. I looked into her eyes and wondered how many times she practiced lying before she got this good at it. That night, she fell asleep in my arms. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind slowly assembling pieces I didn't even know were missing. It wasn't just the soap opera. It was the second set of Spotify playlists that weren't hers. The odd perfume I smelled once on her that she insisted was just a sample from Sephora. The way her phone suddenly had Do Not Disturb on during gym hours, and how she kept her Apple Watch locked with a passcode. And then, there was the toothbrush. We each had our own. Hers was pink, mine was blue. One morning I found a third toothbrush, green, wedged in behind the others in the holder like it was trying to hide. I asked about it. She said it was for when her cousin visits. Her cousin lives in Michigan. We live in San Diego. Her cousin hasn't been here since her wedding. Still, I nodded. I said, oh, right. Then I went to work, sat down at my desk, and started planning the digital version of Armageddon. See, when you're good with computers, and I mean really good, you can unearth things most people never think about. Cache data, cloud syncs, location history, hell, even deleted messages if you're clever enough. I set up a keylogger on our shared laptop. Nothing sinister, just an insurance policy. Within a week, I had a full transcript of her side of the affair, messages to daddy.d, because of course, hotel reservations, screenshots of spicy Snapchat exchanges. She even called me boring once. That one stung more than the nudes. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I had everything I needed. Not just to confront her, but to destroy the sweet little narrative she painted about herself to everyone around us. Friends. Family. Her precious Instagram followers who thought she was a wellness queen. It had to be perfect. Not just a confrontation. An execution. And where better than Reddit? Where posts get screenshots. Where stories go viral. Where even employers Google names and find the juicy top comment with 40K upvotes in the title. My wife slept with her personal trainer while I was paying for her hot yoga classes. I started drafting. Meticulous. Dates, timestamps, evidence, all anonymized enough for plausible deniability, but unmistakable for those who knew her. I was deliberate. I even used the same syntax she did in her posts, those little self-love phrases, to make the irony hit even harder. The final touch? I edited the post to mention her unique tattoo, Latin script on her ribs. Just enough for anyone who's ever seen her in a bikini to recognize her. I hit post. Sat back. Watched the internet chew her to pieces. But that was only phase 1. They say you don't notice a house rotting from the inside until the floor gives way beneath you, and by the time I realized the beams of our marriage were hollow, she'd already moved her soul into another man's bed. At first, everything looked perfect from the outside. We had the rituals. Sunday morning pancakes, Tuesday night wine, lazy Netflix weekends, stupid inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. I used to catch her looking at me while I worked, and when I asked what she was staring at, she'd smile and say, just my husband. And that was enough for me. I supported her through everything. Paid off her student loans. Encouraged her to quit the office job she hated, and start her wellness coaching journey. Built her a website, set up her booking system, even edited her yoga videos for YouTube. She called me her rock, her anchor, her safe space. But then, the light behind her eyes started to dim. Only, not in the usual way people fade. She didn't grow cold. She grew distracted. Her body was present, but her spirit had checked into another reality I wasn't invited to. She began spending more time recharging, a word she used often, like I was some kind of emotional charger she'd outgrown. She started meditating in silence for hours, locking herself in the spare bedroom, claiming she was reconnecting with herself. And I believed her, because I wanted to, because love makes you stupid. She stopped texting during the day, saying the constant phone buzz interrupted her mindfulness. Her hugs got shorter, her kisses became air, and when I'd reach out in bed, she'd turn slightly, whispering, "I just need to sleep right now," as if intimacy had become some kind of energy vampire. Then came the new friends, names I'd never heard before, people from her yoga class or healing retreats. Suddenly, she was going out late after class, grabbing smoothies, or doing breath work with a guy named Ocean. Yes, Ocean, who apparently had a shaved head and a beautiful feminine energy. She told me I should be less threatened by men who were in touch with their softness. And I tried. I really tried. I didn't want to be that jealous husband. But there were too many nights when she came back smelling like unfamiliar cologne masked under patchouli. And then came the boundaries. That word slithered into our conversations like a snake. She said I needed to respect her independence, that she was on a journey. That love meant allowing space to grow. She even removed the photos of us from her Instagram, claiming she wanted her personal brand to be about self-expression and not about being someone's wife. She changed her passwords, locked her phone, turned off read receipts. She said she needed to reclaim her digital privacy. And still, I trusted her, or tried to, because I didn't want to believe the woman who once sobbed during our vows could lie to my face. But I was watching her become a stranger. Her eyes would glaze over when I talked. She started spending money on odd things: rose quartz face rollers, moonstone pendants, expensive retreats in Joshua Tree. One day, I found a second gym membership card in her car, different location than her usual spot. When I asked her, she laughed and said it was a free trial. But there was a receipt tucked inside the glove box, 3 months prepaid. Another time, I opened the fridge and found a half-eaten vegan dessert she swore she'd never buy. She used to hate coconut, said it gave her headaches. Now it was her new favorite thing. And her body changed too. She'd always been gorgeous, but suddenly she was glowing, toned in places she never worked on before. She started wearing new lingerie, but not for me. I'd find them drying in the bathroom, tags still fresh, but she never wore them when we were together. One night, I walked into the bedroom early and found her taking a selfie in front of the mirror. Lacy black bra, soft red lighting. She flinched when she saw me, then laughed it off. "Just for my confidence," she said. "Part of my self-love routine." I nodded, but I felt something break deep in my gut, something primal and ugly. I wanted to believe her. I still slept next to her. I still asked how her day was. Still made her tea in the mornings. But I watched every move like a detective who didn't yet have permission to believe the crime. She was drifting, and I was grasping at smoke. I smiled through it. I said I was proud of her growth. I told myself it was just a phase. But inside, I was already counting the lies. And when the cracks became too many to ignore, I didn't rage. I simply started collecting. Quietly. Efficiently. Because I knew, when the time came, I'd make her regret every ounce of deceit she tried to sugarcoat with buzzwords and affirmations. It was a Wednesday, and she was humming in the kitchen, something light, tuneless, the kind of melody people make when they're pretending to be busy. She wore one of my shirts, oversized and hanging off one shoulder like some romantic comedy trope, the kind of detail she used to reserve for us. But I didn't say anything. I didn't even look directly at her. My phone buzzed in my pocket once. A name I didn't recognize. Dom. Just that. No last name. No emoji. Just Dom. I don't know why I checked it. Maybe because fate has a cruel sense of timing, or maybe because something in the air felt off. Like the calm before a bloodbath. It was a push notification from the smart home system I'd set up for her, the one she forgot I could still access. Front door opened, 2:14 p.m. She was supposed to be at a wellness retreat that afternoon, halfway up the coast. I stared at the timestamp, then at her, moving around the kitchen like nothing had happened. I slid the phone back into my pocket. Didn't ask. Didn't confront. Just walked upstairs, casually, like a man who forgot something, because I had. I'd forgotten to check the new security cam I installed in the living room last month, the one I buried in the corner bookshelf behind the Buddha statue she bought to bring in balanced energy. The feed was stored to a private cloud drive, encrypted, unlisted, mine alone. I clicked the latest file, timestamped 2:11 p.m. to 3:05 p.m. The video loaded slowly. At first, it was just the front door swinging open. She walked in. Alone. Then, 20 seconds later, another figure stepped into frame. Tall. Broad. Short beard. He looked around like he'd been there before. Like he knew the layout. Knew her. She laughed at something he said, something I couldn't hear but could feel, that kind of flirtatious laugh women save for when they want to be taken. She pulled him in by the collar. Kissed him. Deep. Familiar. The way she used to kiss me when we were still in love and not in denial. I didn't blink. I didn't pause the video. I just watched. They stumbled to the couch. Clothes peeled away like an afterthought. She wore that lingerie, the set I found drying in the bathroom, the one she never wore for me. Her back arched in a way I hadn't seen in months. The kind of movement that screams, I've done this before. When it ended, they laid there like animals after a meal. She curled into him, whispered something into his neck. Something soft. Intimate. She looked happy. Not guilty. Not conflicted. Just satisfied. Content in her betrayal, basking in it like sunlight. I closed the laptop, walked to the window, looked out at the street, empty and silent, and felt something inside me snap, not like a branch, but like a lock. A quiet shift. A click. I realized then that I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even angry. I was done. Done playing the fool. Done doubting myself. Done loving someone who wouldn't even bother hiding how little she respected me. And yet I didn't scream. I didn't storm downstairs. I walked back down with a calm so cold it scared even me. She was plating dinner. Chicken stir-fry, her favorite. She smiled when she saw me. You okay? She asked, like everything was normal. I nodded, kissed her forehead, told her I had a long day. Sat down, ate the food. Every bite tasted like ash, but I chewed slowly, silently, because I knew this was the last dinner we'd ever share as husband and wife. Not because I was leaving, but because I was about to take every last thing she ever valued and twist it until her perfect little facade collapsed under the weight of her own lies. She didn't see it coming. And why would she? She thought I was weak, predictable, a man who'd keep forgiving until I was nothing more than a doormat with a heartbeat. But I wasn't that man anymore. That man died the second I watched her laugh in another man's arms, wearing the lace I bought, in the house I paid for, on the couch we chose together. What stood in his place now was something far more dangerous, a man with nothing to lose and all the time in the world to orchestrate her fall from grace, one post, one whisper, one perfectly aimed truth at a time. She thought she was clever enough to cheat under the same roof and walk around like nothing was happening, but what she didn't know was that I had already slipped into the role of something much colder, quieter, and infinitely more dangerous than the husband she thought she could manipulate. I became her shadow. The next morning, I told her I'd picked up an extra project at work, said I'd be working longer hours and might not be home for dinner. She smiled, almost too quickly, like she was relieved. That told me everything. I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove across town and parked near the cafe where she claimed to be holding her weekly client mindfulness sessions. I waited. 3 hours. No sign of her. Just a barista who looked bored out of her mind and a steady stream of soccer moms. The second week, I scheduled a flower delivery to her yoga studio at a time she swore she'd be there, and I had the bouquet signed from a grateful client. The studio called back, confused. Said they had no classes booked under her name that day. Strike two. But I didn't confront her. I smiled, kissed her when she came home, listened to her tell me all about her incredible new session. She was building her lie like a fragile glass castle, and I was walking the perimeter, hammer in hand. I logged into our joint bank account and went through 3 months of purchases line by line. Her usual haunts were there: Whole Foods, Lululemon, the overpriced metaphysical bookstore down the road. But then I found a series of charges from a specific boutique hotel, the kind of place with robes too soft for monogamy. The charges were always during odd hours, midday, sometimes early morning. Different rooms, same location. I ran a reverse image search on the hotel's logo and pulled their room layouts. matched the room numbers to the reservations, and filed the info away. I didn't need to see her there. I just needed her to keep lying. I created a fake Instagram account, nothing obvious, just a subtle fitness page with reposted quotes and healing mantras, the kind of page her type would follow without thinking. Within 2 days, she accepted the follow request. Within 5, she liked 3 posts in a row, then replied to a poll asking if she had a sacred connection that defied logic. I demed her from the account. "You seem like someone who understands energy." Her response was nearly instant. I didn't push it, just let her type. She wanted to talk. She wanted to feel seen. I let her. I watched her write to a stranger with more passion than she showed me in months. Meanwhile, I started laying digital traps around our home. I installed a keystroke logger on her MacBook, buried so deep in the system settings she'd never know, and a second tracking app hidden in a system update I told her I'd installed to fix her lag. Every time she texted Dom, I saw it. Every hotel check-in, every Uber ride, every lie about being too drained to go out. I saw her open Google Maps and route directions to his apartment on a Wednesday night after claiming she was attending a guided group meditation. I tracked her location as she sat parked outside his place for 20 minutes before going inside. She didn't leave until 3:14 a.m. The next morning, she was in the kitchen again, humming, acting like nothing had happened. I asked how the group session was. She lit up, full performance mode. Said it was transformational. I watched her closely. She looked me in the eyes and spun that lie like silk. That was when I knew the depth of it. She wasn't just cheating. She was living 2 lives. I asked her little things in passing. Did Ocean move away? She paused, then nodded. Said he'd gone to Costa Rica for a soul retreat. I already knew he was still in town. I'd seen her meet him once. Hug too long, hands too low. She thought I was oblivious. I played along. I started complimenting her more, acting lighter, as if I'd finally let go of the tension between us. She lapped it up, thinking her emotional manipulation was finally working. But behind every smile I gave her, there was another breadcrumb I collected, another camera I adjusted, another message I archived. I didn't need her to confess. I didn't even want her to. I wanted her to dig herself so deep into the performance that when the curtain dropped and the truth hit like a tidal wave, there'd be nothing left of the reputation she cherished so much. I wasn't just documenting an affair. I was creating a masterpiece of exposure, layer by layer, lie by lie, until the whole world could see the raw, unfiltered, ugly truth behind the woman who preached healing while desecrating the very foundation of trust. And she still had no idea I was watching. It happened in the most ironic place imaginable, during a group dinner celebrating the 1-year anniversary of her wellness collective, held at a sleek downtown rooftop bar with mood lighting, raw vegan appetizers, and an endless rotation of clinking wine glasses. She was glowing that night, not with guilt but with confidence, like a woman convinced the game was already won, surrounded by her circle of pseudo-spiritual sycophants who all spoke in affirmations and drank tequila shots between chakra talks. I had arrived a few minutes early and slipped the hostess $100 to ensure that everything played out exactly the way I wanted. The private dining area had a long table set for 12, an elegant projector screen on one end, supposedly for a slideshow of her clients' testimonials. She had no idea I'd swapped the USB stick during setup. No one did. The group was halfway through their first round of cocktails when I raised my glass and said I wanted to toast the woman of the hour. She smiled, her hand finding mine across the table, fingers warm and unaware. I told the group how proud I was of her, how much she'd grown, and how deeply I admired her commitment to truth and transparency, terms I knew would sting in about 30 seconds. Then I nodded to the bartender, who dimmed the lights as the projector flickered to life. It started innocent enough, a photo of her leading a sunrise yoga session on the beach, set to soft acoustic music. Then the screen shifted. The next image was of her kissing him, Dom, outside that boutique hotel. Another followed, them holding hands at the same restaurant she once begged me to take her to, claiming it was too expensive for us. Then a screen recording of their flirty texts, complete with the pet names, the explicit fantasies, the laughing emojis she used to reserve for me. At first, there was silence. Then a few murmurs. A chair scraped back. She turned toward me slowly, like her body was trying to resist catching up to her mind. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The final slide came up, her, lying naked in our bed, tangled in sheets I bought, with a timestamp proving it wasn't from the past. That's when she stood, knocking over her wine glass. "It's not what it looks like," she said, panic starting to crack her voice. A few people looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared at her, their eyes wide. We were just talking. It wasn't like that. I swear. Still, I said nothing. Just sat there, hands folded, watching the implosion. "Okay," she said more firmly, straightening up, her voice shifting to indignant. "You've been distant for months." I felt abandoned. What was I supposed to do, rot in silence while you ignored me? A few guests exchanged glances. The soft hum of music playing overhead suddenly felt oppressive, like a heartbeat growing louder. "You never paid attention to me," she said. "You cared more about work than me. You made me feel invisible." Then the smile came, and not her usual soft smile, but the venomous one. The kind that says, "I still think I can win. You really think this is going to make you look good? You think these people are going to side with you? Look at you, stoic, cold, manipulative. You're the sociopath, not me." She let out a short laugh, sharp and empty. "You stalked me. You hacked my life. You invaded my privacy." Her words came fast now, each one flung like a dagger, trying to cut deeper, trying to make me crack. But I didn't move. I let the silence stretch until it wrapped around the table like a noose. Then I finally spoke, calmly, clearly, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're right," I said. "I did stop paying attention. I stopped paying attention to the woman you were pretending to be, because I started noticing the one you actually are." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "And for the record," I continued, "I didn't hack anything. You gave me everything I needed. Every lie, every deflection, every little inconsistency. All I had to do was pay attention." She blinked, once, then again, like her brain was glitching. "You ruined this night," she said, voice shaking. "You ruined me." "No," I replied, still perfectly composed. "You did that all by yourself. I just turned the lights on." Her eyes darted around the table. Some guests looked at her with pity, others with disgust. No one came to her defense. The woman who once commanded the room now stood like a ghost, lost, unraveling, her empire of self-love crumbling beneath the weight of her own duplicity. But I didn't get up. Not yet. I leaned back in my chair, took a slow sip of my drink, and watched her try to collect what dignity she had left. I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The silence after the slideshow was heavier than any scream, and she felt it more than anyone, because she knew in that moment, no amount of charm, no amount of staged vulnerability or teary eyes would reverse the tide that had just turned against her. But that didn't stop her from trying. "You smothered me," she hissed, low enough for just me to hear as some of the guests awkwardly drifted away from the table. "You made me feel like I was drowning every day in your expectations, your routine, your need to control everything." Her voice cracked, but it wasn't grief, it was fury disguised as hurt, the kind you spit out when the mirror finally shows you what you really are. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, that same calm expression on my face that drove her insane because it gave her nothing to work with. "Say something," she snapped, leaning in, desperate now. "You think you're so perfect? So righteous? You think you've never failed me?" I blinked, slow, like she was background noise. That pause drove her off the ledge. "You were boring," she spat, louder this time, uncaring who heard it now. "You were a checklist. A routine. Safe and dull. You were never dangerous, never exciting, just another man afraid to feel something real." I met her eyes and finally spoke, the words cold and clean. "And yet you still chose me." That stopped her for a second, but only long enough for the venom to boil again. "Because I had to," she snapped. "You were the backup plan. The stability while I figured myself out. You were convenient." She smirked, like that might finally sting. But all I said was, "And still you lied to keep me." Her smile faltered. She stepped back. Her voice got shriller. "You're twisting everything. You don't get to be the victim. You think you're some kind of saint, sitting there with your smug little act? This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. That one was meant to break something in me." Instead, I leaned in slightly and replied, "Then why did you pretend I was for so long?" She froze again. Her hands clenched at her sides like she wanted to throw something, but didn't know what. Her eyes scanned the room, trying to gauge who was still watching, who might still be swayed. She lowered her voice again. "I was unhappy. That's all. I was lost. You never tried to see me." I nodded slowly. "I did. That was my mistake." She blinked, genuinely confused now. She wasn't used to this version of me. The version who saw everything, felt nothing, and wouldn't flinch no matter how hard she pushed. She tried another tactic, her voice softening, head tilting like a wounded animal. I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to get this far. I was just trying to feel something again. I didn't budge. You felt plenty. That's not the problem. Her face twisted. You're heartless, she snapped. You don't even care, do you? And that was the moment she realized. I didn't. Not anymore. And that terrified her far more than anything I could have yelled or thrown. My indifference was a verdict, final and merciless. She searched my face, trying to find some crack, some flicker of the man who once adored her. But I had erased that version of myself the moment she laughed in another man's arms. You always needed control, she muttered, almost to herself now, pacing, unraveling. This whole thing, this reveal, it's just another power trip. You're pathetic. I stood slowly, adjusted my sleeves. You thought I didn't see you, I said. But I saw everything. I saw how you looked at me when you thought I wasn't enough. I saw how you flinched when I said, I love you, like it was a burden. I saw the way you edited me out of your life, one detail at a time. She stepped back, breath shaky. So what now? She asked, her voice breaking, her eyes wide. You going to leave me? Just walk away like I'm trash? I shook my head. No, I'm going to let you stay in the wreckage you built. I just made sure everyone else saw it too. Her mouth opened, closed, nothing came out. No more insults. No more bargaining. Just silence. The kind that buries people. I turned to leave, and she reached out, almost reflexively, like she could still salvage something from the ruins. But I was already gone. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, irrevocably. And she knew. She knew the worst part wasn't that I exposed her. It was that she no longer mattered enough for me to hate. She still thought there was time, that the dust might settle, that my silence was some form of shock, or grief, or hesitation. But what she didn't know was that I had already moved into phase 2, and every breath she took inside that house was borrowed time. Revenge isn't about fury, it's about accuracy, about turning every lie, every betrayal, every smug little smile into a lever you can pull to flip their entire world upside down. The morning after the dinner, while she locked herself in the bedroom pretending to cry, I was on the phone with the bank. I froze the joint account, moved the funds into a separate, personal account, legal, clean, fully documented. She wouldn't notice until she tried to buy one of her overpriced chakra balancers and got declined. I deregistered her from our shared credit card and canceled every authorized user account she had, including the one she used for gas, groceries, and those midday hotel rooms. I reclaimed the car. I'd bought it outright under my name. So I took the keys while she was asleep and had a buddy from my company drive it straight to a garage I trusted. Her yoga gear was still in the back seat. I left it in a box on the doorstep, taped shut like a coffin. I transferred all utilities, streaming services, and rent to her name, but not before setting the expiration for the end of the month and scheduling cancellations. I even shut off the internet for one day, just to watch her spiral when her lifeline to Instagram was severed. Then I got surgical. I took every screenshot, every video, every bit of metadata I'd collected over weeks and categorized it. Timestamps, names, locations. I backed it all up to 3 encrypted drives, one stored in a lockbox at work, one at my brother's place, and one in a secure cloud server under a false name. I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a digital guillotine. Next, I scheduled a meeting with my divorce attorney, someone sharp, ruthless, and personally recommended by a colleague who'd gone through something similar. I presented everything: the infidelity, the financial misconduct, even the psychological manipulation. My lawyer smiled, said it was the cleanest case she'd ever seen. Within 2 days, the paperwork was drafted. I didn't file it yet. Timing mattered. First, I emailed a carefully crafted message to her employer, an executive wellness coaching firm that marketed her as a pillar of spiritual integrity. I made no accusations, just provided the evidence. Screenshots of her affairs, her using work resources for hotel bookings, images of her engaging in questionable behavior while still claiming to be with clients. I left my name off. Just the facts. Within 48 hours, she was quietly asked to take an indefinite leave of absence while they reviewed her conduct. Then I moved to the social level. I didn't rage post. I didn't go public with drama. I started with her parents, sent them a folder labeled, "For Your Clarity," containing photos, chat logs, and the video of her with Dom on our couch. No comments. No explanation. Just evidence. Her mother called me in tears. Her father didn't call at all. Then her friends. I reached out one by one to those I knew personally, those who used to call me the perfect husband. I sent each a tailored message, short, respectful, irrefutable. I didn't ask them to pick sides. I just let them see the truth she'd hidden under incense and fake smiles. By the end of the week, her phone had turned into a war zone, friends ghosting her, parents questioning her, her boss distancing himself publicly on LinkedIn with a vague, realigning company values post. She still didn't know how deep I'd gone. She thought I was just being cold, that maybe I'd forgive her eventually, that this was just a phase. She still posted quotes about healing, about rebirth, about letting go of toxic energy. I let her. It made the next part even better. I filed the divorce papers exactly 2 minutes after she posted a photo of herself manifesting peace on a hiking trail. Served her that same evening, delivered to her table at a juice bar by a process server wearing a Namaste t-shirt. I heard she cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. But I wasn't done. I reached out to Dom's girlfriend. Yes, he had one, and gave her everything. All the messages. The pictures. The hotel bills. She left him the same day. He moved out the next week. Now neither of them had a relationship, a support system, or even the illusion of moral high ground. I had burned it all to the ground without ever lifting my voice. She thought betrayal made her powerful. But she never understood. True power is the ability to dismantle someone completely and still sleep like a baby after. And me? I slept like the dead. The fall didn't happen all at once. It happened in a slow, agonizing collapse, like a cathedral crumbling stone by stone while the choir still sang inside. But the moment it all came crashing down in real time was at her own event. A charity gala she had planned for months, branding herself as the keynote speaker, the healing voice of women in transition, dressed in that same white dress she once wore for our engagement party, standing beneath golden lights in a hall filled with donors, clients, and every last person she had fooled. She thought this night would be her resurrection, a chance to rebrand her image after the unexpected leave from her job, spinning it as a conscious detachment from corporate toxicity, a spiritual pivot toward authenticity. What she didn't know was that I had spent the past 3 weeks ensuring everyone in that room already knew the truth. I had emailed her clients, her sponsors, the local wellness influencers she so desperately admired. I didn't use threats. I used facts. Unedited, undeniable truth, screenshots of her affair, timestamps, her texts trashing the very people funding her lifestyle, mocking their fake trauma, and calling her own brand, just a hustle for the gullible. The whispers began the moment she stepped onto the stage. I stood at the back of the room, alone, still, arms folded, watching her smile under the spotlight, her voice opening with that breathy, insincere calm she used when she wanted the room to adore her. "We all have wounds," she said, eyes scanning the crowd, until they landed on mine and stopped. Just for a second. Her smile twitched. She blinked, and I nodded once, slow, deliberate. Her rhythm faltered, the cadence of her words shifting. She began to sweat, just a little, barely noticeable unless you were watching her as closely as I was. Then the first person got up. A woman near the front row, one of her high-paying clients, the kind who once called her his spiritual sister. She stood, stared, then walked out without a word. Then a second. Then a third. Soon, it wasn't just walking, it was murmurs, turned heads, flashing phones. One man stood and read aloud one of her texts from his screen, her own words mocking his pathetic story and his victim complex. Her mic was still on. Her silence echoed through it. Someone laughed. Not a joyful laugh, a cold, vindictive chuckle that cracked the tension like ice underfoot. She tried to continue. I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice now dry, hoarse. "People, they manipulate things. I never said those." But then another voice interrupted her from the back, her former assistant, the one she underpaid and overworked for years. "You typed them, sweetheart. I saw you." More laughter. This time sharper, less restrained. Her face flushed red. She tried to keep the smile, but it was broken now, trembling, a weak mask peeling from a face that no longer knew how to pretend. She turned toward me, her eyes searching, pleading, angry, desperate all at once, and I just stood there. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't smile. I let her see the full weight of my silence. That was when she snapped. "You did this," she screamed, pointing at me, the microphone catching her pitch perfectly, broadcasting her breakdown to every corner of the room. You vindictive little coward. You couldn't handle being left, so you destroyed me. Her voice cracked. People stared. Phones were out. Flashing lights captured her wild eyes, the sheen of tears, the trembling lip, the mascara starting to run. She looked around, searching for allies, anyone who would come to her defense, but they were all gone, or worse, watching with that cold detachment reserved for villains caught mid-monologue. You don't understand, she shouted to no one and everyone. I was hurting. I needed something real, but no one answered, and I still hadn't moved. She dropped the mic. It hit the floor with a hollow, echoing thud. Then she covered her face, sank to her knees, and sobbed, not those performative tears she could summon in seconds, but raw, fractured sobs of a woman who finally understood there was no one left to believe her. She had burned every bridge. I remained in place. Watch it all unfold. Watch her unravel like the lies she once spun so effortlessly. And as she wept on the polished marble floor beneath her own spotlight, surrounded by the ghosts of her credibility, she looked up one last time. Our eyes met. And in that single gaze, she knew the truth. I hadn't just exposed her, I had unmade her. Wordlessly. Mercilessly. Completely. The explosion happened 2 weeks after the gala, after she tried to retreat into silence, hide behind curated Instagram stories and weak apologies sent to people who weren't answering anymore, and it all came to a head at her parents' house. During what was supposed to be a family discussion she begged for, claiming she needed to clear the air and speak her truth. She didn't know I was coming until I walked in the door, standing shoulder to shoulder with her father, who had personally invited me after I forwarded him the full archive of evidence, texts, pictures, the video footage, and told him she had dragged their family name into the dirt. Her mother sat rigid on the couch, clutching a tissue like it was a prayer bead, her face pale and tight with embarrassment. My sister was there too, arms crossed, eyes like daggers, because she'd once defended my wife, vouched for her when I had doubts. Even Dom showed up, uninvited, cocky, hands shoved in his pockets like he wasn't the human equivalent of a roach infestation, his arrogance cracking just slightly when he saw me standing there with a folder under my arm labeled, in bold black ink, receipts. She walked in last, clearly not expecting an audience. Her eyes darted from me to her parents to Dom, then back to me. She tried to play it calm. I didn't think you'd come, she said, but her voice already carried that edge of desperation. I came to make sure the truth gets heard, I said, loud enough for everyone in the room to catch every word. No more filtered versions. No more selective stories. She rolled her eyes, already defensive. You act like I murdered someone. People fall out of love. It happens. My sister snapped first. You didn't fall out of love. You jumped into someone else's bed and burned everything behind you. Her mother let out a broken gasp, but her daughter ignored it. You think I'm the only one who's ever made a mistake, she yelled, turning to the room. He was emotionally distant. He made me feel invisible. I needed to feel alive again. You needed to feel special, I shot back, stepping forward. And when you didn't get that from me, you chased it from anyone who looked at you twice. You lied. You cheated. You disrespected every person in this room who ever believed in you. She snarled. Oh, please. Like you were some perfect husband. You buried yourself in work. You never listened. You treated me like a houseplant you forgot to water. I was building a life for us. I shouted now, the first time I raised my voice, and the room went still at the weight of it. I was paying for your life, supporting your dreams, cleaning up after your messes while you played goddess and cheated in the house I bought. You were never unloved. You were ungrateful. The room cracked. Her father stood up, face red with shame, and Dom shifted uncomfortably toward the door, clearly reconsidering every choice he'd made since sliding into her DMs. You don't know what it was like living with you. She barked, shrill now. You were cold. Calculated. You never needed me. No, I said, stepping closer. I trusted you. I believed in you. I defended you. And you used that as cover to do what you wanted, thinking I'd never notice because I was too busy being steady. You were boring. She screamed, the final card thrown in desperation. Predictable. You had no fire. No passion. No, I said, calm again, deadly calm. I had integrity. Something you traded for 30 minutes in a hotel with a guy who can't spell accountability. The room gasped. Her mother put her head in her hands. Her father turned away completely. You're pathetic, she spat. This is your revenge? Humiliate me in front of my family. No, I said, holding up the folder. This is. I opened it and laid photo after photo on the coffee table, text logs, reservation receipts, screenshots of her mocking her clients. I let her parents look. Let Dom look. One of the photos was of her in his lap, laughing. Another was of her calling her mother, a judgmental old witch, in a chat to a friend. "You think this is justice?" she yelled, voice breaking now, tears coming. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said quietly, "it just makes the truth undeniable." "I loved you once," she whispered, voice cracking, lip trembling. "You were everything to me. I didn't mean for it to get this bad." "You loved the life I gave you," I corrected. "You never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have destroyed me while smiling in my face." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing now, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. Dom was already gone, slipped out when the shouting started. My sister walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. Her father turned back around, walked to me, shook my hand with glassy eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "We all are." I nodded once, looked at the wreckage that used to be my wife, curled up, humiliated, exposed, and I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I felt justice. I turned toward the door. As I reached it, I looked back one last time. Her eyes met mine through the blur of her tears, and I knew she would remember this moment for the rest of her life. Her fall was not sudden. It was slow, humiliating, and drawn out like the final breaths of something that had been dying for a long time but refused to accept it. After that final confrontation, everything she once clung to slipped away piece by piece, like sand through cracked fingers. Her job officially terminated her within a week, citing public image concerns after the evidence made its quiet rounds through internal circles. Turns out, clients don't like being mocked by the woman who charges them $200 an hour for emotional clarity. Her wellness brand collapsed in a matter of days. Her podcast subscribers vanished, her social media turned from adoring comments to cold silence, then to people tagging each other on old posts with comments like, "Is this the one who cheated on her husband with that guy from the gym?" Her so-called friends, the same ones who once gushed over her divine energy and posed beside her for weekend retreats, ghosted her like she was contagious. The ones who stayed long enough to see the screenshots said things like, "I need to protect my peace," and then blocked her. She moved out of the apartment she once begged to stay in, left behind the throw pillows and the Himalayan salt lamp she said held too much pain, and crawled into a rented room in a dying neighborhood 2 cities over where no one knew her name or cared to. She got a job folding towels at a spa that didn't ask for credentials, only hands that worked and a mouth that stayed shut. The affair partner? He was gone the moment the first accusation hit public air. Ghosted. Vanished. Deleted their photos. Blocked her number. Turned her into a memory he could deny ever happened. Her parents cut off all communication after the final call. Her father told her, in no uncertain terms, "We didn't raise you to become this kind of woman." And her mother wept so violently through the call that she hung up halfway through a sentence and never answered again. One night, about a month after it all fell apart, she showed up at my new apartment, the one with no shared memories, no traces of her, just clean walls and peace. She stood outside my door in the rain, makeup running, clutching a bag like she thought I'd let her in. I didn't open the door. I just watched through the peephole as she paced, cried, knocked twice, and eventually slumped to the floor. I listened to her sob through the wood. I heard her whisper apologies to the air. She left after 40 minutes. Left a letter under my door, handwritten, begging for forgiveness, saying she was lost, that she still loved me, that I was her only anchor in a world that had turned on her. I read it once, then dropped it in the trash. A week later, she called. Blocked number. I picked up only to hear her voice tremble through static, soft, broken, pleading. "Please," she said. "Just let me explain. You have no idea how sorry I am. I miss you. I miss us. You were the only real thing in my life." I let the silence stretch. Let her desperation soak into it like blood into linen. Then, calmly, I replied, "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." She didn't say anything after that. The line stayed open for a few seconds, then she hung up. That was the last I ever heard of her. She disappeared into the consequences she created, a ghost in a city that no longer had space for her illusions. I walked back to my quiet kitchen, poured myself a drink, and looked out at the clean horizon of my new life. She had bet everything on the idea that I would never walk away. And she lost. I don't hate her. I don't miss her. I don't even think about her unless I'm telling this story. And to you, whoever's listening right now, wherever you are, thank you for sticking through to the end. I want to know, where are you from? And more importantly, did you enjoy watching her fall as much as I enjoyed telling it?